Happy Monday.
Welcome to the couch. Thanks for hopping in with us.
In with us or on with us?
In the couch, in the podcast. Did I say in?
Mm-hmm.
Hopping in the zone with us.
Hey, I like that.
Something's going to work.
If you haven't, please subscribe to our newsletter at carliescouch.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, please.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are already subscribed. But if you feel the need to leave a comment, remember you can also leave them on the website as well. And there have been a couple people who will leave comments on the site, like underneath the post. And I always go in there and comment back and talk back as well. So you have everywhere to reach us, Lextopia, CC Fierce, or Carlie Carpio on Twitter. Carlie's Couch is on Twitter and Instagram now as well.
Hey.
So subscribe across the board, comment across the board. We see it and we respond.
We see it. Yes, so today I was thinking about topics and things that I wanted to share, and I feel like right now I'm just in this, constantly, but specifically right now, it's so top of mind. I'm in this constant state of growth. And for me, growth leads to a lot of discomfort, a lot of unlearning and processing and growing. And well, of course, growth leads to growing, but a bunch of things that can be really uncomfortable and don't always feel good. But it's like, you're doing the right thing, but it just doesn't feel good sometimes. And after having a lot of conversations with a few of my friends, I'm like, this is a real thing that a lot of people I feel like are going through right now.
If growth is a good thing, then why would it feel bad?
So I think about it in an analogy. For example, like seeds, they have to kind of burst open before they can grow up. And butterflies, they turn into mush before they turn into a butterfly. So
They turn into what?
mush. When they're in the cocoon,
Ew.
they literally, they're like a caterpillar, and then they literally fall apart and then turn into this butterfly. And so it's like the building stages, they don't necessarily have to be painful, but I think sometimes they can, especially when it's personal work, because it usually involves a lot of introspection and a lot of unlearning and relearning things and questioning yourself and being like, damn, I really did fuck up on that one. That was me. And so I think I'm at least at this stage where it's causing a lot of discomfort, but discomfort is not always a bad thing. I think it's just always been a big part of my life, but realizing that it's a necessary evil to grow into this person who I want to be is kind of where I am with it.
Okay, so in what types of ways do you feel like you're in a growth period now or in a discomfort period now?
Because I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of where I want to be and working towards those things. I can tell I'm making progress and I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. And I can tell just in my interactions with people, in relationships, even in business, I'm learning so much. I'm becoming better at what I do every single day. I'm becoming a better friend, a better me, and how I talk to myself. Feels like everything in my life is in this transition point. But I'm not, nothing is necessarily stable or exactly where I want it to be.
Okay, so maybe a better question is, what is the discomfort? What do you mean when you say it's not comfortable?
Oh, okay. So
literally.
Literally. So I'll give an example. So in my life, having awkward conversations with friends or with people, or learning to assert myself and stand up for myself in ways that maybe I didn't in the past, and realizing oh damn, that's why this thing happened in the past, because I wasn't able to stand to speak up for myself in this certain way. Just kind of figuring things out as I go along.
So perhaps the reason, because I think it's kind of an interesting anomaly to think about something that's supposed to be a good thing, but the fact that it's accompanied by this discomfort as well, and not a good thing. So perhaps it's, and it sounds like what you're saying is it's having the space to perform at the level that you're wanting to, but it's you're still having to figure it out, and you're still trying to learn to fill in the shoes of that thing. So it's it's a period now where you're good with where you've been, right? Everything's easy. And so now to be you know what? I want to have better relationships with my friends, or I want to stand up more for myself. Once you've made that decision now, that's kind of the growth. And it's uncomfortable because you still are really good at what you've always done. And so now you're challenged to actually like step up and get better and learn how to be that next thing that you've decided this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that that's a great...
And it's hard when it's like, it's different, and it's hard when it's something you're not used to, and it can be hard because you might trip up and then you kind of get down on it. You know, like if you're trying to get bigger clients or do more with your business, and now it's like, okay, you know, you're writing different proposals, but now that's harder, or it's a little more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's uncomfortable because you are growing and gaining the skills that you need to be doing these things that you're ready to do.
Yeah, I think the one piece is that this isn't like a new thing. I think I've always been in discomfort because I've always wanted to level up and be that like better version.
So
I think
is that
this
good,
is the
though?
I think this is the most self-aware I've been throughout the process, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
which is probably the difference.
Exactly. I was about to say, I think that that's the difference, the maturity that comes along with it, and like learning to, you know, be very grateful for, you know, all of the great things and where I am and all the progress that I've made, but also still in this position of like every day, like peeling back layers, as Preston kind of talked about, and like working on just getting down to the root and learning those skills and growing and challenging like limiting mindsets that I might have had, and like, oh, I can't get a client like that. And actually like now I can, but here's the things I have to do in order to get that client. And so I feel like it's this constant like process every day. I'm like reshaping and regrowing and trying to show up better as myself, but I'm much more aware of all of the work that's taking.
When was the last time you felt like you were in the comfort zone?
Oh God. Probably whenever I was living in Dallas. So let's say that was like 2014.
Okay.
Probably 2014.
That's recent.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things.
Yeah. Fairly recent, but that's when I noticed I don't know if it's wrong or not, but that's like kind of when I felt like something was wrong. I was like, wait, I'm comfortable. Like this isn't. I can't. No, this is not the end all be all. So I have to figure out like what that next level is for me because I'm too comfortable here.
I think the last time I was in a comfort zone was 2010 because I'd graduated from school in 2007 from undergrad. And for a couple of years, like really like a year and a half, I was working at my university. And it was the kind of job, it was like in admissions where I was coming in every morning with like my sunglasses on because I was out every night.
Turn up.
Because the job was so easy. It was stupid. Like I was on the computer, I had to make sure certain processes were running. I was at that time on Facebook all day and like, I don't know, it was just whatever. But it was fine. But you know, I knew I wanted to go to grad school and do other things. But I wanted to wait till I knew exactly what that looked like with what I wanted to move forward in doing. Because my majors were kind of broad. My interests were still a little bit broad. And I didn't want to just do a thing to do it. But I got to a point where, and it just clicked. I remember being in my office and thinking, oh, maybe I should talk to people about this and let them help me understand where I need to be. And I know I've told this story, so just quickly, like I went to an old professor. She kind of hooked me up with like helping me realize what my interests were, lined it up for grad school, and everything just lined up all of a sudden to getting there, having a job, having free housing and a $5 million house and like in Chevy Chase and like everything going well. And then grad school was a point of, you know, just kind of the discomfort of just being in school again. But like that was a semester at grad school was harder than all 4 years of undergrad, and it was totally different. And being away from home, like farther away from home a little bit for the first time and, you know, things like that. So I also never felt homesick, but overall, that's, I think, when I was comfortable and was like, okay, I'm ready to make the next moves. And from that point on, I don't think I've been in like a comfort. Well, I have slightly, very recently maybe, but I hadn't been in like a zone where like everything was just like, everything's all good and I don't have to think about other things if I don't want to.
And so how does discomfort, how does that affect you? So if you haven't been in this state of like comfort, you know, in a long time, like does it fuel you? Is this just something that you're used to?
I don't know. So when I think about discomfort though with life, I don't necessarily tag it onto the growth. For me, when I think about being uncomfortable, that's when, like right now, like this whole week, like my chest is really tight, or I'm like, I can tell if I'm more anxious or I have more anxiety or I'm thinking about too many things or I need to slow down. But not discomfort in the way of I'm comfortable with life, and so, like getting uncomfortable is let me take a risk. Like if we're calling discomfort like taking a risk or doing all of that, that's like real regular for me. And there's nothing that's like every day is all I'm doing is taking risks. And there's nothing that would stop me if tomorrow I really was like, yo, I want to be a zookeeper, and I will go to a zoo and get the job and like do what I need to do. So like I don't feel discomfort in changing or making moves per se, but I literally feel uncomfortable when like my personal situations are a lot to think of, or when I have too many things that I'm trying to balance or do at once, or a lot of things that are just going on to focus on, which sure is part of growth. So apologize if I'm contradicting myself as I talk through it, but which is part of the growth in understanding, like what is a good routine for me, or how's a good way to maintain my staying in the present, or what are better ways to develop the foundation so I don't feel stressed about particular things. So all of that does lead to me putting things in better place and doing better, because I can see and notice the discomfort and understand, all right, where is that coming from and what do I need to do to make things a little bit easier. I don't necessarily think being in a state of constant discomfort is a good thing, like something that we should, well, I'm never comfortable, I'm always this and that. Like, I don't think that's a good thing. And I had a conversation recently about the fact that, I'm a great problem solver, and I work very well under pressure, and I work very well being uncomfortable, but I don't necessarily want to. I don't want to feel like I'm always like trying to figure it out. I don't want to always feel like I'm in the middle of growth. Like at what point, is everything cool? And I think that's a lot of mindset and being okay with where you are and stuff, which I feel like I overall am. Like if somebody asks me, like I'm fine. Like even if I'm not fine, I'm fine.
Yeah, same.
But at the same time, the discomfort is just me seeing that, oh, this is something, a light's on, how do I turn it off, and figuring it out, and then another light's on and figuring it out, until hopefully you can get to a point where it's all whatever you're trying to get to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I feel like I don't think it's healthy always, because I've talked about how our body has two separate states, and when we're stressed out and in fight or flight, so putting out fires, constantly trying to problem solve, like our bodies can't even like rest properly and digest and take care of themselves. And so there is some type of balance in finding peace, no matter like what discomfort is going on. I think for me, like I said, I've never really been comfortable. I'm always like working towards that next thing or building, but it's also checking in and making sure I'm grateful for where I am. But I think in this season, the thing that I'm learning is how to find peace, I guess, during the discomfort, because I used to not do that. I used to just work harder or find other things to do, or just find other things to make me busy, than really just like learning how to sit still in the discomfort, I guess, and process it.
But isn't your whole life like peace and meditation and a lot of that you're doing every day?
I'm trying.
Is that not helping?
No, it helps a lot. It helps a lot, but it's even that. So I've been doing yoga for, dang, I'm 30. I've been doing yoga for 7 years. And like, I'm just learning to sit. Well, I'm just recently, probably within the last couple of years, learning really just to sit with the discomfort, to sit with the growth, and to process those things and facing them head on. Whereas when I first started doing yoga, it was probably more so just to clear my mind, or to rest, or to just like get the negative thoughts or the anxiety out of the way, as opposed to like facing it head on and dealing with it. And I feel like that takes a lot more out of me, but it's a lot more peaceful at the end.
But this is all going on in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, well, anxiety and things can manifest in your body, but I've been doing a lot of like work in my head. I also have been doing these weird things with my hands. So if you're watching the video, Felicia was making fun of me the other day, and now I'm noticing.
Yeah, you're always grabbing for something, grabbing at the air.
Grabbing for something else. But yeah, it's anxiety manifests itself in my body, but I feel like it's just been such a journey in my head, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it. I was like, I feel like I'm having these imaginary struggles that nobody else knows about, but I'm really working on growing a lot as a person. And sometimes I think it sucks, and because like I don't have any physical representation of how much I'm growing, or at least I feel like I don't.
So are you growing if there's no manifestation of it in the world around you?
I think there is. I think I'm too hard on myself. Like if I look at my interactions with people, my interactions with myself, my thoughts, if I look at the work that I'm doing and the caliber of the work that I'm doing, everything is getting better. The universe is giving me more opportunities, which I don't think would happen if I was
Oh no, I was doing that so like you'd know when you were done. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for you to stop.
Which I don't think would happen if I wasn't getting better and growing. Like I don't think that the universe does that all the time, at least for me. But I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's not like I want flowers for having all this personal growth.
What does getting better mean to you?
Getting close. That's a really good question. Getting closer to who I want to be, which requires a lot of unlearning, which requires more loving, which requires like more communication and being a better friend. And
aren't those all things that you would always continue to get better in?
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal.
And so where do you feel like you are now in that space? Because I don't think you're necessarily giving yourself enough credit in those spaces, because where you are, I'm trying to figure out how to separate like the mind part of it and the literal part, right? Because in your mind, there's things that you want to do as far as how can I handle things better? How can I be less anxious? How can I be more loving and so forth? Be kinder to myself, etc. In the real world, or in the physical world is better. There is, having more clients, having more income, which is kind of a reflection of you focusing more on yourself and what you're trying to do as far as growing business, etc. And so the mental things, I think that we need to give ourselves a little bit more credit about even being aware of them and how we are and where you are with that. Because I feel like when we talk about growth and stuff, you mostly talk about mental. But what about focusing more on the physical, like literally doing the things, right? Like, or do you feel like that really is I want to be kinder, I want to be this and that, like those are the most important for you right now? Because I feel like you kind of have that in the bag enough to where our goals and our what's uncomfortable right now may be more of executing more, calling more people, spending more time doing things, like that literal things. And I think sometimes it's easier for us to say, oh, I need to be more this and more that, when it's actually like it's the real things that we can do to bring that out. Because I think, and I'm not in your brain, but I think that is very matured to where I think it's actually easy for you to keep thinking about that and keep working on your mental when it may be other things. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it did. It did. In a roundabout, like I got you though. I hopped on the boat. I think it's a mix. I think that I'm grabbing for stuff again. I think that for me, I want to have all those mental things before I take the action. But there's one of these quotes, quote master is back, and I'm not going to fuck it up. Is that you don't have the time to heal your personal trauma before you can do what you're supposed to do on the earth. So it's like, I'm not going to
works together.
Exactly. And I'm not going to be 100% before I can go take those actions. And so I've been taking a lot more actions and getting a lot more fruit from taking those actions. But then I think I am really hard on myself. Well, I'm still not here exactly where I want to be with this and this and this, so I can't do these actions. And so I think it's a mix of both. But I think that has taking more actions, especially this year, I've challenged myself, has been so great for me personally and for my business. And I think that, that just kind of challenged me in ways where I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I have to work on this growth. Like, man, maybe I should just do something instead.
Is the goal to be uncomfortable or to be comfortable? Because, again, I think we're putting a lot of value in, well, I'm struggling or I'm uncomfortable. But is that the goal?
To be uncomfortable?
Yep.
Well, nothing grows in the comfort zone. And so, at least for me, I don't feel like anything grows in the comfort zone. And so I think there is something to being uncomfortable and always challenging yourself. But there has to be a balance in a way that, honors the work that you're doing and gives yourself credit, but also still pushes you enough to keep continuously growing. Like I will forever be learning, growing, evolving, Carlie, like there's going to be 165 evolutions of me before tomorrow in general. And so I think it's a delicate balance of doing both of those things.
I would say that the goal is not discomfort in that being a full sentence. I would say that the goal is to be aware of discomfort and to understand or work through that to get comfortable in those spaces. And there's always going to be something else where you're uncomfortable, right? And so I think it is a constant being aware of what those things are and working through them. And the goal is, how do you find the seed of opportunity in your discomfort? Because it's always there. There's always this thing that you can use. And that's one of my favorite quotes. It's a Napoleon quote, is that in every problem, there's a seed of opportunity. And anytime there's anything wrong, it's always well, how can I flip this? Or if you're feeling anxious, or if you're feeling any kind of way, or if you're struggling to get more clients, or whatever the discomfort is, it's okay, recognizing it, trying to pinpoint what this is, and maybe even going deeper to yourself to like, what is this really coming from? Because it may be your own perceptions when you're doing fine, and you being hard on yourself or whatever. But where is my seed of opportunity here for my own growth and to move forward, to get out of this place of discomfort? I don't think we should want to be uncomfortable, but I think we recognize it because that's part of life. And I think that the goal, I thought it was supposed to be able to feel at peace through recognizing that and knowing what's uncomfortable, and still being able to balance and maintain your mind in a place where you feel good, even when things aren't all okay.
Yeah, I think the goal is peace. There's in Sanskrit, so it's yoga. It's the language of yoga. It's an Indian language of yoga, but basically it's called the stira and the sukha, and it's finding the sweetness within the steadiness. Like there's always going to be the steadiness in life, and in yoga directly, you're in these uncomfortable ass positions, and it's about finding the sweetness, like finding that moment, that balance, that peace within each pose. And I think that directly translates to life, so I think you're right. And I love that quote. I haven't ever heard that from Napoleon.
I want to think of how I can get a tattoo that like represents that without words. I'm tired of getting words all over me, but I'm trying to figure it out, because I remember, and that's from the book, I don't know if it's somewhere else too, but in his book, Outwitting the Devil, that's one of my favorite books because it challenges the reader to really question a lot of things and consider, society and education system, religion, all of those things, in how are we really kind of using a lot of these systems and a lot of things to keep ourselves more in a box and keep ourselves kind of held back and limited, when there's a lot more power kind of within us. And if we understand, more so going out on a limb, if we understand bouncing out of things, if we understand ourselves a little better and what we want a little better and go for those things more. So that's really like one of my favorite books. And I remember how that really changed me, because as we grow, and I know for you too, because we've kind of talked about it before, as a person grows, it just gets quicker and quicker, right, to problem solve. So it's not that problems aren't here. It's not that you have less problems. You just problem solve more easily and with less stress on yourself. Even right now, like I said, like my chest is hurting right now, but that's just, I know my body, I don't feel stressed. My body gets stressed. Like I'll feel like I'm having a heart attack, or my head hurts or whatever. And so I'll know it, but I still have to just process through it. But I don't feel mentally bad, or like I'm stuck, or necessarily, anything like that. But you can work through that quickly versus where you can sit around or ignore it. Or sometimes, like we said, if you're used to being in such a state, you may not know what it feels like to feel not anxious, and that could be a real thing. I might not. I don't even know what that might feel like. Maybe I have before. There's certain Zen times where you just feel really, really good. But yeah, I think we're so used to that, but we move through it quickly, so it's always something different. But you're continually just moving through.
Yeah, which I think I've actually been wondering, as we continue to grow and evolve, if that bounce back period, if that ever disappears. It's things that, so something that used to maybe take you a couple of days to get over, now it only takes you 10 minutes or something. You're but I wonder if there's ever that moment where something's just meh, it doesn't even bother me anymore.
I think all the time. I think there's, or that things, it's different, right? Things that maybe used to bother you back then, you don't react to, or they don't bother you. I for sure see that in my life, especially with communication with people, perhaps, and how people may affect me or how I react. But I don't know if that's good either, because I've just turned more and more into a robot. I used to, but I used to, not so much that I react, but it was more held in, and more I was still gonna get you, but just not right now type thing. And now I just don't care about a lot of things. I just don't engage it, and it doesn't bother me, and I don't react, and I don't care, because when it comes to people, how people operate with me, you're either with me or you're not with me. And if you're not with me, I don't really care what you have to say to or about me or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that I have like hell enemies or anything. And if I do, what's good? But I mean, I don't care. But yeah, like I'm a very strong proponent of what's here is here. So I prefer to show the love to the people who show the love than to even think about anything else. So for me, like, I don't know, stuff doesn't bother me. And I feel like I'm invested properly in the people where they also are invested back.
No, and I love that. I was actually tweeting the other day. I was like, I just don't think I'm the unbothered type. Like I really have, like, I think you are. There's a bunch of people in my life, like my best friend Kim, like just unbothered, like things.
But at the same time, I'm not. Like I'm very. What do you mean by unbothered?
I feel like some things. Okay, for example, so after we did our live episode, one of my friends texted me. One of my neos, one of my neos texted me and was like, "Oh my God, I loved our live episode last night. I talked to one of my students because she works with students, and I was able to share some of the tips that y'all gave about goal setting with him. And he like said, oh, it was so helpful and it was really useful. And I was like, Lex, and I was like so excited. She was like,
I wanted to try so hard to be more excited. I swear I did, but it's not that I'm not excited. But yeah, so she told me that, and she was so excited, and I was just like, okay, like, does that make you feel good?
Exactly.
But you know what? I same with the bad things. It's also with good things, and that's why I kind of have okay, cool tattooed on me, because that's like my like okay, cool, like that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Like, and then it's not that I'm not excited about it, but we hear those things like all the time, and whether I heard that or didn't hear that, I still feel the same about what we did, and I don't know. Like, was I supposed to be jumping up and down? I don't know what I was supposed to be doing.
You're not supposed to be doing.
Like,
but that's what I mean when I say I'm bothered. So, like,
but I don't like shutting other people's excitement down either. But I can't make myself be like extra.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like I'm just not like unbothered. Like I would feel satisfied if nobody texts us anything after, because we talk about all the time. I would still do this if none of y'all listen. I love that y'all listen. Shout us out when y'all do, so we can. Well, at least so I can talk to you, because I'm excited about it. But like those things still make me really happy. Like even I was like, and that's okay, because I low key was judging myself about it. Like, dang, well, why do I get so excited? And I'm like, well, that's just who I am.
I mean, I think that's fine. I don't know. I don't know if that's something like over time as you get more and more that it's just like okay, like it's not as exciting. And I don't know if it's a bad or good thing either way to be excited and to feel the excitement with other people. I think that's good. When you get bad news or something like that, does that super affect you?
It might at the beginning. Like I feel things very heavily either way, but as I grow, it is the bounce back time. Like I might have something and be like, oh damn, and then 5 minutes later be like, it's not that bad, because I've learned to adjust my perspective and know that like no matter what's going on externally, like everything's gonna be okay. Like, but did I die? No, I'm still here. Okay, well then we can work it out and figure something else out. But I do feel both things on each end of the spectrum very deeply. But I'm just like learning to process quicker through those things and realizing like it's not a judgment. Like it's not bad that I'm not unbothered. But also as I get older, I have less and less F's to give. And that's nice.
Yeah, I just think I'm less affected by outside things on either side, good or bad. Maybe that's kind of what it is. I'm less affected because, no, you know what? Actually, I think it's not a good thing. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the episode anymore, but I think that's rooted in me being disconnected, which I've been in a period of all year. And it's hard for me, this sounds bad, but it's hard for me to care about certain things, and it's hard for me to connect with certain things because of everything else I'm focused on in my brain and my own stuff. And so while I'm like going through things, there's always a million things in my head. I can't get excited about other things or even the bad things. They don't reach me because it's like, okay, like it's still okay, cool. Like everything is okay, cool. Like this other stuff is what I'm kind of more preoccupied thinking about. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing either, but it is very hard for me to connect in a moment of like joy with somebody else when that's not where I am. Has
it always been like that? You said it was this year.
No, it's been very recently that I've gotten more. So, and also like in the last couple years, I've gotten way more like ADHD too, and way more like I have to keep telling myself, slow down. Like I'm running to go do something in the kitchen, but on the way to the kitchen, I thought about something else, and I stop, go to the bathroom, do the other thing, but then, oh, shoot, this other thing. Then, oh, an email, I'll start it, and then come back, and, oh, what was I going to the kitchen for? And, like, that's a real thing. Like, that's literally how I will do. And by the time I get to this third thing, and it's like, shoot, like, no, go back. Or, like, I'll come to the kitchen to do something, like, come to the kitchen to make coffee, but then, oh, no, I need to water my plants. Go all the way back to halfway back to my room, and then be like, wait, I could turn the coffee on, but then do it while I was making the coffee. Then I'll go back to the kitchen. So it's like, I'm always trying to figure out, like, which thing needs to get done. And I think I just need to slow down more. But that compounded over time has now kind of put me in a state where I think my anxiety or just so many things going on has taken over to the fact where I don't see like the stuff around me as much.
No, that makes sense.
Like I'm kind of blocked off from like, I don't care. I literally don't care about a lot of things in a not so good way, because I just can't connect with it right now.
Yeah, that's a bit, but you don't have space for that. Is that what you're saying? You don't have space because you have so many other things that are kind of blocking that?
It's not about other things like necessarily are more important either or anything like that, but I don't know. I just can't. I can't connect to care about a lot of things. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's a bandwidth thing per se, because I'll take on more stuff and I'll do things, but it takes a lot of effort to go past quick, personable communication and stuff.
Yeah. And I don't think one is right or wrong. Like I don't like being disconnected, like not being able to connect necessarily in those moments, or I would sometimes maybe
yes,
I would be
is.
overly connected. You think so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because that's being grounded, right? And feeling connected to other people, feeling connected to your space, feeling connected to the world. I think that's the point of life. And if I'm disconnected from everybody around me, if you're telling me a story and I'm disconnected and I can't care and I can't process it, or I have to make myself be like, oh, great, or, like that, like, that's me not living, like, or feeling the world that's around me. I'm, like, living in my brain. And that's just one of the biggest things that's, I've seen it growing stronger, and so I need to, like, work through that. Right. So going back to discomfort and growth, lately, that's been my most uncomfortable thing. Like I said, like if I feel anxious about a lot of things going on, or just the fact that it then compounds, because I don't want to say I will feel bad, but like feeling like now that I identify this thing and like I know this thing is an issue or something that I have to grow with, and this kind of goes back to the beginning where I'm like, well, what is growth and discomfort? Like, why is that a good and bad thing? It's because now I'm at a space where, oh, I've identified, like I get it now what the issue kind of is, but now every time I kind of slip up, it's like, shoot, or you're trying to work through how do you fix that? And that's the discomfort part of the growth part of understanding what it is, but you're working through it.
And being kind to yourself throughout the process. So it's like, even though it is discomfort, like how do you stay focused and working through it? Like what keeps you, because I know you're self-aware and you're always working on bettering yourself, but if this process is hard, like what would keep you sustaining and working through these things that will be uncomfortable and might be tough?
Well, because actually to stay in the space that you are is really more uncomfortable than moving through it. And so if I notice like the space I'm in I don't like, or it's not the most efficient place for me to be, let's say it like that, because it's not necessarily about liking it, not liking it. Like I love being by myself and just chilling, whatever. But if it doesn't correlate with what I'm saying my goals and what I'm working on are, which it doesn't exactly, then I need to figure that out.
Yeah, making sure it's in alignment. For me, it's that part, but also thinking like, well, like what else would I be doing? Like if I wasn't doing this, just being stagnant, and also just looking at how.
No, but what if it was not? If you weren't feeling uncomfortable, what if it wasn't? You're feeling stagnant, but what if it was? You're just moving day to day, doing your stuff without feeling bad about it, or like without feeling away.
That's the goal.
Because really, we're uncomfortable because in our minds we are not at this thing yet, right? Like, it's like we're making our own discomfort.
Always.
If we can view it more in a way of, all right, I'm working through this thing, or I'm getting better with this thing. I think there's a way you can see it in a way that's not negative, or not a, man, I'm not there yet, or I'm getting there, but like a different way to look at it.
It's definitely a perspective adjustment. It's definitely a perspective adjustment.
Because like we said, it's always there. Like, there's always some discomfort. So I think perhaps it is maybe more of a perspective thing, not a, well, I'm always getting better, I'm always working. Like, we're good. You're good. We're good. Everything's good. It's the same shit every day. And when I'm good with this thing too, it's, it's something else. Like, we're always good. It's part of, and I guess you can say, like, it's not so much you're getting better, you're getting more comfortable with yourself.
I was about to say, yeah, that's what it is, because whenever you're not good with yourself, it's because you're like living with the past or living in the future and not living in the present. But when you're in the present, everything is actually okay. And that's a good self-check.
It's just not a gun in your face or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
straight.
But I think that's a good self-check, is if, like, throughout these processes, which sometimes they can be uncomfortable, but like your mindset on what you're going through and what you're processing is a big piece. Like, if you are anxious for not reaching these goals or not being quote unquote where you want to be, like, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Whenever all you really have to do is just be present in the moment, and better connecting with yourself actually helps you to better connect with other people.
Yep.
Because that's the major blockage.
I think the discomfort is the pressure that we're putting on ourselves. Because, and even as an example, yesterday, while I was working yesterday, and the fact that you have to accept that for yourself. So the same way I was kind of with you earlier, a couple of the folks I was working with were like, man, you have such a beautiful spirit, and you're so amazing. When I first saw your smile, and my first thing that I said was, what are you talking about? That's not the kind of person I am. And I said that, and I thought about it, and I was like, I tend to come off, and people are always kind of like, oh, you were intimidating at first, or, whatever. And they were like, no, I remember you were so joyful and blah, blah, blah. And I was telling them that I wasn't. And then I thought about it later, like, well, maybe that is something I've gotten better at. Like, I try to make sure I maintain a positive kind of like output when, even if I'm chilling, like, it's not necessarily like, if you have resting bitch face, for example, it doesn't mean you're really like mad or upset or whatever. Yeah. But like, I try to make sure like I show that so people are comfortable. But then I was like, wow, people actually think that. Or like my other friend Kyle was like, man, you talk so much. You are so talkative. Whereas then I can go to John Holland's crib and he's like, man, you hate people. And I keep telling him, like, stop saying that narrative, right? And he thinks I'm joking, but I'm like, seriously, like, stop that narrative, because it's not that I don't like people. I love people, but when it's too much time or too many people or I don't identify with certain people and like with the things they talk about or whatever, then I'm cool, I'm fine. I'm just going to be quiet. Like, I'm just going to balance the room or balance who's around me.
Yeah.
So, but I had to, it's interesting that if somebody can say that about you and you still are like, no, that's not me, or that is me. And so it's about feeling that in yourself and like defining kind of yourself, and that you might be there. Like, it might not be an issue, but you're making it an issue.
Yeah, no, and I think that's beautiful. And you are joyful and have a beautiful spirit and all of those things. And I think the more you learn about yourself and become comfortable in that, the more like people can see it, whether you're like trying to put an output out there, because people can kind of feel it in your spirit.
Yeah, I remember when I first went to college, I think I told the story already too, but when I first went to Elon, the first night, I thought, I want to do things differently, because in high school I was very quiet. I didn't hang out with anybody. I went home after school. I didn't do extra stuff at all. I didn't go to no parties, no nothing. And in college, I was like, man, I think I'm going to be different. And that first night, like, I went over and talked to my roommate, who's like one of my best friends now. We went all around to everybody else's room, was knocking on the door like, hey, like meeting people. And, was just more outgoing and more, like, I've always wanted to, no, not always wanted to, but I've always been very solo, or like not needing connection. And that's probably a whole thing about identifying needs and, needing people and having really gone a long time not thinking I need people or not feeling like I do. But then it slowly has switched, and it's changed over time. And so, exterior doesn't necessarily show you, I think, like who the person is. But yeah, I think whether somebody's jovial or somebody's, reserved, you don't necessarily know like what they're going through or the discomforts or, where they are. Like, that doesn't mean that person is going through stuff, and it doesn't mean because you're joyful, like everything's all good either. So, I feel like it's one of those things where I think this is like all internal really. And you just kind of are, aware of how it's portrayed and how it affects other people, like what you're going through. Because I don't think that your growth and the discomfort that comes with growth should necessarily have to affect everybody else. Yeah, you may need to isolate. Yeah, you may need to do your own thing. But like, I don't think it should be such a up, down, up, down. Like it shouldn't be all that. Like it doesn't, I don't think it's as dramatic as we make it in our heads.
Oh, I would agree with that. And it's even more dramatic in my head than I've been like saying out loud. Just know it's like 10 times more dramatic in my head. But I think whenever you do that work and you're able to change your perspective and be more in touch with yourself, it actually kind of helps everybody else out around you. Because they can see that in you. They can feel that in your spirit. They see your growth when it comes to certain issues or in relationships. And then it just kind of helps them like better tune in with themselves and see what's possible, like whenever this work is being done internally.
Mm-hmm. So when you're in the growing process and you're feeling uncomfortable, what are things that keep you moving kind of through that?
Thinking about like why I'm doing these things, looking at how far that.
What are these things again? Sorry. I want us to try to stop saying things so much, and I'll try to do that in my own life too.
No, that makes sense. Thinking about why I made the conscious decision to change this, to try to be more open and to be more direct in communication in relationships, to try to have the awkward conversations instead of just kind of shying away like, oh, this is not a big deal, I want to talk about it. Well, actually, my feelings are a little bit hurt and I do want to talk about it and help processing, but also not putting it on people like, oh, my feelings are hurt, you did this. It's like, no, my feelings were hurt by this conversation. And then creating a space to be vulnerable and figure out if it's a me thing or it's a them thing, for example. So that is one thing that I've been wholeheartedly committed to within the past 2 years, at least, that I can think off the top of my head is, having direct conversations with people. Like, this really hurt my feelings, but I know I can be sensitive about this. And they're like, oh, that wasn't my intention. Or, I did come off a little bit bad. And so we can kind of have those conversations. But as awkward as they can be, I continue to have them because it creates a more open pathway with my friends and I, and also helps me more introspectively, like learn about myself and learn where I might be carrying, baggage around things, or where I'm like, no, actually, I'm proud of myself for asserting it. So that's one of the quote unquote things. Like I won't go into all of them, but there's like looking at what my goal is in certain areas and self-assessing and seeing like where I am and also how far I've come and who I want to be and the type of person, like checking in with myself. Like, is this something that I want to grow in? And I guess I'm trying to be more general because there's a list that will go on to infinity for all the things that I'm trying to work on. And grow
but what
through.
Keeps you going through those processes is that the end goal, you're saying?
Well, the end goal, like looking at progress, thinking about like, so where I want to be, looking at who I, used to be and how much I've grown, and also thinking about all the people that, I want to help and want to be there for, and that if I'm operating in my purpose, like I say all the time, rising tides raise all ships. Like, how can I help others?
One of the biggest things that keeps me pushing through is the fact that I like excitement and I like adventure and I like things to be different. I don't really like feeling like I'm doing the same thing for long, ever. And I never have. And I'm just coming up with this and realizing this now as I'm acting like I even know this about myself. But I do, because I moved every so often, or, even with my work changes every so often. It shifts what my focus is. And I believe that working through the discomfort is it's just a requirement for being able to get to new places. Like you can't do different things without having that particular growth or experiences in stuff that you don't know, or you are learning, or you are figuring out. And so it's really less of discomfort and more of like you're always kind of in a learning process, and the perspective is what kind of keeps me not upset about that, because I have to go through this to get and to enjoy doing these things that I want to try doing, or to go where I want to go.
No, I love that. And it did sound like you've been knowing this for your whole lifetime. It's confidently like she came out talking about it.
So interesting how in the past week I've had opportunities to tell stories about Romania and like traveling and like different stuff, and it feels like I've had a million lives like on the low. Like,
bruh, get out of my brain. Oh my God.
I was talking at work the other day. I I was working with Harold Perrineau, and if you don't know who that is, Google him because you know who he is. And I like to talk to people and ask them different stuff than just like the regular shit. And I asked him like, yo, what's a weird hobby you have? He was like, and he lit up. He's like, and you know, I like jujitsu. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you doing jujitsu, da da da. And then he took me off guard. He said, what's yours? And I was like, right. And then I said, you know what? One of my weird hobbies is just like going to different places and fitting in, like everybody thinking I'm from there, and like learning language and the travel I've done. And so we were talking about like Romania and some other stuff, and like he was like really into the convo. And I was thinking about like, it's so interesting because then with Kyle recently too, and shout out Damo, shout out Kyle coming over for tea and tree in the evenings, and we talk about life and we drink our tea. And, I was telling him some of the stories, too. I was like, yeah, the Gypsy King tried to, like, recruit me when I was 16 to stay at his palace and stuff. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And, like, I remember, like, I was on this train, and it was, like, Indiana Jones. Like, to go to the other car, I had to jump across the thing while the train was moving. Like, I remember all of that. And he was like, what? And so I was like, oh, yeah, this shit is interesting. Like, there's a lot of stuff. And I always love pushing different boundaries and doing different things. And I probably feel some kind of way because lately I've been discomfortable or uncomfortable because I haven't been able to have the adventures that I've wanted to have, travel as much as I've wanted to travel or as I used to travel, because I'm in such a uncomfortable, like, with work and having to focus on all those things. And so maybe that's part of it, right? Like feeling like you're kind of burnt out. Like, that's kind of my discomfort zone as of now.
It's so synchronistic that you talk about, like, we've lived like a million different lives. Felicia and I we're talking about the other day, like, man, like 20-year-old us, and like, next, Felicia and I were not friends when we first met. We went to the same high school. We were like, didn't really F with her like that. But then
we always turned into the best friends.
We ended up working together, being servers at this restaurant before college, and we're like, we realized we were going to the same college, and we like started talking about our dorm stuff. It's like, our dreams and just who we are and the things I was doing then are so different. Like, I've been through so many different lives, and we do have such cool stories, and I need to hear eventually I hope to hear all of your stories, but like jumping from trains. And
I have a journal from 2015, which is that's way after Romania stuff. That was when I was in Spain, lived in Spain, and I have a journal of every day I wrote into what I did that day, and I think it's at home in North Carolina, so I need to find it. But I was so glad I did that because I remember finding it actually years later and looking at it like, oh my God, I do remember this like it was yesterday now because of how I wrote it. Like, I remember writing the things that the people I lived with made to eat, and like where we went that day, and we went to this museum, and my friends, like how we were hanging out in school, and like, flamenco classes, and we went bullfighting. I was the first one who jumped in for the bullfighting, like all this stuff. And I have every day, like I wrote like what the stuff we did. And so I need to find that. But it's hella stories.
Yeah.
But you don't want to live in the past either in that. Like, what are my stories now? It's like just working, But I guess it isn't. And in the future, I'll be looking back like, man, those years in LA, like all the cool stuff I did as far as the work I've been able to do and people I get to work with and stuff like that. So,
and then you'll be able to see synchronistically how the doors opened and the people that you met and the relationships that you formed. It's such this beautiful, it's like this beautiful tapestry that each thread forms this really big, beautiful picture, but we can't see it until the end, and we're not there yet apparently. So here we are.
Yep. Anything else about feeling uncomfortable and growth and like how you move through it?
I've always heard this quote by Buddha, which I will probably mess up, but it's talking about how we are the cause of our own suffering. And like through this whole conversation, I'm like, damn, like maybe this is not as uncomfortable as I think it is.
It's not.
So here we are. But that's why, we have the bouch.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I think all the time, like even the stuff that we're going through or whatever, it's like everything's like really going well. And sometimes I think that, perhaps I should try to see myself more the way that other people see me. And all those people who message me all the time about how they got inspired to do a thing, or, I see you working so hard and I do this and we did that and this and that. And seeing those things and be like, that's the person that I am. That's the person that you are, the people who are sharing those messages and things with you. So we should see ourselves like that. Like, everything is great. You're doing so much for where you are and with your path. Like, I'm doing everything on the path. Like, there's nothing that I'm behind in per se. It's just all like part of it. So, I mean, kind of just having that different perspective around it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not it's only uncomfortable because you're not okay with
Not okay, not
accepting
present.
this present situation or moment or whatever, you know?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And then we have our shout out.
Sure, yeah. So I guess we're done talking about being
Well, I mean, there's
uncomfortable.
nothing I could say after that. That was everything.
Yeah, and I think that was interesting because you were on Lex's couch for a second, and I was on Carlie's couch for a second.
I mean, we're always on your couch though, but continue.
Right, technically. But I mean, as far as like, the conversation and stuff, and I think it's important to, get your own thoughts out of your brain and like run them past people and, well, maybe not all the time, but like, running past people now, running past the world. Shout out Botswana, where we like number 2.
Doc, I know Botswana we're always on their like on their chart, which makes me so excited. But I was gonna say, no, I think I've been like milling around with this in my head for a while. So I've been trying to make growth a topic on the blog for like the last month, but I couldn't like get out an episode. But it's everything,
right? Like growth is everything. So it's like, what are we
really
talking about?
But it's everything. But I wanted to check in with myself before I even brought it up for a conversation. Like really, what am I trying to talk about when it comes to this? And so I'm grateful, for you for holding space, but also for y'all for holding space and processing. Cause that's really like why we started Carlie's Couch is to have these conversations and to try to grow through these things together and provide a platform where we can share these stories and hopefully hear some of y'all's too.
Mm-hmm. And this week's shout out goes to my friend Briana Clearly, who we've had on a previous episode. Catch it if you haven't before. She talked about directing and being a woman of color in film. And speaking of films, one of her films, The Sum of Her Parts, she submitted that to the guy who does Dear White People. So they had some type of a competition and she submitted her film. And out of all the submissions, she won an opportunity to have her film screened at the Regal downtown in LA before the premiere of Dear White People's, I think it's season 3.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Briana.
Congrats, Briana.
I'm going with her to check that out this evening and see her get honored. So we just want to like praise, report, past guests as well. And you can catch her on Instagram, Briana Clearly. We'll have that in the notes.
Shout out Briana. That's amazing. Y'all check that out. Support her. Go show her some love. And then we always end with our question of the week.
Yep. You want me to ask it or are you going to ask
I'm
me
going to
first?
ask it. What is truly mine?
I would say the thing that is truly mine is my decisions, my ability to look at a situation and make a choice. Am I going to do what I've always done? Is that the right thing to do? Am I going to do something different? Am I going to do what's uncomfortable? Am I going to do what will actually get me closer to what I say I'm intentional about getting done? And so I can always make that choice to actually get the hell up or to not send that text or to send this email right now instead of putting it off. And so the only thing that's mine is my decisions.
I love that. The only thing that's mine, what is truly mine is this moment. That's really all that I have. I don't have anything else except for just being present.
Cool. All right.
So what is truly mine? Hit us up, screenshot, let us know that you're listening at Carlie's Couch on Instagram and Twitter.
And we will see you next week.
Have a beautiful week.